Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Councillor Ian Edwards and I'm Chairman of the Central and South Planning Committee. Before we get into the business, just a couple of announcements. Usual ones. Mobile phones, please, colleagues. Can I make sure that they're turned off or to vibrate? And also, members of the public, be most appreciated. Just remember to do my iPad as well. Fire alarm. One isn't expected, so if it does go off, we will be evacuating. The best way is the way you probably came in, out through those doors, and we can either take you downstairs from there or back round to the Civic Centre, depending on circumstances. Should that exit be blocked for whatever reason, there are other fire exits behind us. Okay. The meeting is being recorded for YouTube. It's actually being streamed live, so warm welcome to anybody who may be watching us live over the internet. But it does mean that this way forwards, from the dome above your head in the public area, is captured by film. And of course, anything that is said with the microphones is also captured. So members of the public who are the petitioners and the agents will be captured on YouTube, and you can play back at your convenience and see the meeting. Residents' feedback form provided for you, please, to give us advice on how we might improve our meetings, and I do encourage you to complete those. Okay, a little bit about the way the planning meeting runs. Although we're meeting in public, it isn't a public meeting as defined, which means there are no general speaking rights. The only people that can address the committee, members of the public, are those defined within the constitution of the council, and that really means it's down to the petitioner and the agent or applicant in response to the petition. Okay, other comments are not accepted. You will see the meeting is it's in part 1 and 2, or part A and B. Part A is the public part of the meeting. They are the general planning applications, and that is the ones that you are probably most interested in. And that is done in public, and as I say, is captured by YouTube. Part B are enforcement matters, and they're discussed in private because they could end up in court action. Okay, so we do break the meeting before we go into Part B, and at that point we break the video link, the YouTube link. How the committee meetings? There's a lot of people around the table. The committee itself is made up of councillors. They're the voting councillors, and I'll introduce them to you. I'll start on my far right-hand side. Councillor Stead, Councillor Chapman, Councillor Chamdell, Councillor Ahmed Walana, and Councillor Yarrow. And on my far left-hand side, Councillor Kashid, Councillor Morse, and Councillor Money. They are the voting members, and as chairman, I will only vote in the event that there is a tie. Okay. We're assisted by a number of officers. These are the experts. Nicole Cameron on my far left-hand side is a legal officer, gives legal advice. Khalid Ahmed is Democratic Services and is keeping a record of the meeting. James Royce, Head of Planning, gives me expert planning advice. Meg Harani is also a planning officer, but will be introducing each application and will be describing the applications to us. And Peter Loveday is our transport advisor. The applications will be presented by Mr. Harani. The papers, though, and the plans have all been circulated and read by the committee meeting members beforehand as well. Okay. When we come to the petition, I'll talk you through that, but there's nothing to worry about. Okay. We have a tiny bit of usual business to get through. We have a few agenda items, but we rattle through them very, very speedily. If you would just bear with us for a couple of minutes. We go to agenda item 1, apologies for absence.
We have a full complement of members, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And colleagues, items 2, declaration of interest in matters coming before the committee this evening. Are there any additional undeclared interests? Councillor Kashid.
Chair, agenda items 7 and 18 are declared non-pecuniary interest. I'll stay in the room. They are both in my ward.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 3, to sign and receive the minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of May. Are they agreed?
Great.
The 7th of June. Are they agreed?
Great.
And the 27th of June.
Great.
Thank you very much. Item 4, matters. No matters have been notified in advance or urgent. And item 5, this is to confirm there are two parts of the meeting, part A and part B. Okay, part 1, part 2, as I described. We're now moving into the meeting proper, and this is agenda item 6, and this is land forming part 13 Salt Hill Close. Mr. Harani.
Thank you, Chairman. 13 Salt Hill Close is a two-storey semi-detached property which has been extended to the side at ground floor level and is located within a residential cul-de-sac of 14 properties. The proposal is for the demolition of the existing single-storey side extension and the erection of a two-storey, three-bedroom attached dwelling. The application is the subject of 6 letters and a petition, and the details of the consultation replies are set out on pages 31 and 32 of the agenda. The main issues for members to consider are the siting, design and appearance of the development and its impact on the character of the area, the impact of the proposal on adjoining properties and parking. In terms of siting, design and appearance, the street scene in the immediate locality is characterised in the main by terraced properties, which are almost identical in their appearance, interspersed with a limited number of semi-detached properties, and then within the wider area, larger detached properties. The addition of a third property to the pair of semis numbers 13 and 14 Salt Hill Close would not therefore in itself be out of character with the immediate locality. Dwelling, in terms of its width, depth, height and appearance, is designed to mirror the adjoining properties and would thus be very similar to the terrace of 3 properties located immediately opposite the application site. The proposal would still leave a substantial gap to the side boundary with Harefield Road, which is situated at a higher level, thus reducing the visual impact from this road. The dwelling would not therefore be considered to be out of character with its immediate surroundings. In terms of the impact on adjoining properties, the dwelling would match the depth and height of the existing pair of properties and thus would have no impact on these properties. To the rear, the proposed dwelling would be located a minimum of 21 metres away from the rear wall of number 2F Beacon Close, which complies with the council's separation distances to ensure loss of privacy and overlooking are kept to a minimum. Thus, the proposal would not have such an impact upon the amenities of adjoining and nearby residents to justify refusal. In terms of the parking, the council's parking standards require dwellings with more than 2 bedrooms and set within their own curtilage to provide a maximum of 2 parking spaces per unit. The proposed scheme indicates 2 off-street parking spaces for the new dwelling and 2 for the existing, which would comply with the council's standards. In conclusion, the proposal complies with the requirements in terms of the size of accommodation provided, provision of amenity space, and would not be considered to be detrimental to the character and appearance of the area. The application is thus recommended for approval. I can just go through the plans. The site is as you can see, there's terrace properties. These are the 3 opposite, then a number of semi-detached properties, and then in the larger area, detached properties. This is the existing situation. This is the 2-storey element, and then the single-storey extension that I was referring to is this. The new property is the coloured element, the existing, the white, and the darker outline is the new property, and the lighter shade is the existing. The proposal provides 2 parking spaces on this frontage and 2 here. There's an existing garage which will be demolished to provide the 2 parking spaces for the new property and the existing parking there. These are plans that were approved opposite at number 12, and as you can see they're very similar in terms of design and appearance to the proposed property. That's the site there, single-storey element there, and then tucked away there. And the parking, this garage is to be demolished and the parking to be provided in that position. These are properties that surround the site. This is the site itself. and then the properties that surround the site, again, similar in appearance, but 3 stories in this case. There is a small addendum. Condition 7 is a duplicate of condition 6 and should thus be deleted. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harani. Mrs. Hilary Beale, if you would like to come forward, okay, and make yourself comfortable at the chair, and we'll just talk you through about the petition. Before you, you'll see a microphone, and there is a button at the front edge of it which toggles the microphone on and off. And we do ask you to use the microphone, otherwise what you say isn't recorded. Okay? Now, you are allowed 5 minutes speaking time. You don't have to use all that time, but it's up to you how you choose to use that. And you will be shown lights in front of us, okay? You'll have 4 minutes speaking with green lights and 1 minute of amber. And when it comes to red at the 5 minutes, to be fair, I have to draw you to a close at that point, okay? So at your own convenience, if you toggle on the microphone and start speaking, we will start the clock.
Hi. Good evening, Chairman, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hilary Beale and I live at 2E Beacon Close. I am speaking on behalf of myself and petition signatories against the building of the proposed property, 13 Salt Hill Close, for the following reasons. This proposed building will mean a loss of light and privacy to 2E and 2F Beacon Close due to the siting of the proposed 2-storey building to the west of these properties. The building line on the Harefield Road. The plan shows an encroachment onto Harefield Road beyond the current property boundary. The proposed house would visually intrusive, breaking the continuity of the properties in Salt Hill and Beacon Close. The impact of building another property in Salt Hill Close, which is already densely developed, changing a semi-detached property into a terrace of 3. Previously, 2F Beacon Close has attempted on 3 occasions to have a property built on the adjoining land and was refused each time by the then planning committee. It also went to appeal and again was refused, and mentioned in the report is that the area was already densely developed. The original builder also wanted to erect more properties when this development was originally being built, and he was also toned down as the area would be overdeveloped. If permission were granted for this planning application, a precedent would be set, thus encouraging other properties in this area with small gardens to apply for similar planning permission. Regarding the report 714, the trees, the landscaping and the ecology, it states that according to the council's records, the footpath is council owned, but this does not include the hedge or any other vegetation. The hedge, as far as residents are concerned, belongs to the council and is maintained by the council, who cut it annually. The reason for the council owning the hedge is in case plans are ever drawn for the widening of the Harefield Road. Parking is a permanent problem in Beacon and Salt Hill Close, and another property will only cause more problems. Not only do the residents of Beacon, Salt Hill and Woodhall Close park, but residents from Harefield Road park their cars and vans on a regular basis. Due to the constant parking problems, I had my drive extended as friends and families were unable to park when visiting. If this project should be approved, where are the building materials to be stored whilst building is in progress? Also, how are lorries delivering building materials to get into such a small close to deliver? This is going to give residents who are used to living in a quiet cul-de-sac a lot of noise, disturbance and dust. Residents have purchased their homes in Beacon and Salt Hill Close under the impression that there is not enough land for development of new buildings, so felt secure in the fact that extra homes could not be built in what is in fact the garden of this plot. The vendor has no intention of living in this close. Like most property developers, they just build flats and homes regardless of any inconvenience or thought to residents, just to make financial profit. Thank you for your attention and hope you consider the points that have been made before you make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I just ask you to turn the microphone off temporarily? We get some feedback at times. Colleagues, are there any questions of clarification for the petitioner, please? Councillor Yarrow.
Thank you, Chairman. Could you just refresh my memory? Did you say you lived at 2F or 2E?
I live at 2E.
2E.
There's a set of semis inside.
Yep, no, I know it quite well.
We're just a set of 4 semis with nice gardens, to be honest. And
Thank you.
Thank you, that's fine.
Thank you. Any other questions, clarification? Thank you very much, Mrs. Beale. Can I invite you please to return to your seat? And now I give, I understand the agent, Mr. Stephen Parfitt, wishes to speak. But he's not here. Is the applicant and Mr. Curl here? Okay. Opportunity gone. Councillor, you wish to speak to the committee. If you'd like to come forward, please.
Very briefly.
That's quite all right. You have 3 minutes speaking time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. There's very little I can add to what has already been said, apart from that I've known this area for all of my life. The question raised over the hedge is one that particularly concerns me. The site plan clearly shows an encroachment onto this area. The hedge is currently maintained by the London Borough of Hillingdon, and as I'm sure many councillors are aware, the London Borough of Hillingdon is not particularly known to look after hedges for other people at no cost to the local taxpayer, which throws into question who actually owns that. In 2001, when the application nearby was rejected on appeal, one of the aspects referred to was the continuity of the scene where the hedge is located. In essence, there are actually 5 items, as already been said, the loss of light. Because if you look at the curvature of the site, it is built on the side of a hill. The building actually will be slightly higher than adjacent property. The building line I've already referred to. But I'll move on to another item that some members are aware of, and that is the traffic in Harefield Road. Because we have recently had a petition hearing involving residents adjacent to Uxbridge Common, which is very, very close, regarding speeding traffic and by traffic trying to avoid the queues in Park Road. Many of those vehicles also use Harefield Road at excessive speed. My concern is if you look at the site plan, you will see the proximity of 2 roads, not only Beacon Close, but there is also one pretty well opposite. Any more traffic going onto those roads will create a potential hazard. We are already aware of speeding in that road. We are already aware that it is actually used as an emergency road, but are used by emergency vehicles accessing the police station and leaving the police station at the bottom of Harefield Road. So we have to think very carefully about the traffic problems, which don't seem to be addressed in the report, and the ownership of that piece of land. And if it is council land, how much have we managed to negotiate a price with the developer? Thank you.
Superbly well timed. Shows your experience. Thank you very much.
I'll have some practice.
Absolutely. Bang on the 3 minutes. Thank you very much. I invite you to return to your seats. Okay. We'll now get into some discussion. But before we do so, there's just a couple of things I'd like to say about the issues that the committee can take into consideration. We are bound by rules and laws on what we must take into consideration, and they're called material planning considerations. And issues such as where building materials are going to be stored, lorry access over the time, noise and dust are not included within that. So although I understand their concerns, they are not matters that we can take into account, okay? However, I have picked up from the petitions the issues of loss of light, and I'll ask for some comment on that. The encroachment onto Harefield Road, and particularly the hedge, that's an issue, and tied to that will be ownership of the land. The precedents that set, you suggested that a precedent would be set by allowing this. My understanding is the precedent has already been set by planning permission for an equivalent build directly opposite, but planning officers can comment on that one. I picked up parking and traffic in Harefield Road. Okay, so we will go through those and then we'll have a discussion amongst colleagues. Loss of light. Mr. Harani, can you guide us on the loss of light aspect, please?
Yeah, in terms of loss of light, the council has standards that it would apply in terms of angles from adjoining properties. 45 degrees is normally the requirement with two-storey developments, and this development would comply with that requirement from all the surrounding properties.
And a east-west axis to the development, does that in any way change that policy or influence that policy?
Not really, in terms of the distances involved and so on. It's going to be very difficult for us to justify refusal on loss of light.
Okay, so you're saying it's policy compliant. Can you talk about the precedent, please?
Yeah, as I showed you in the presentation, planning permission was granted for a development on the opposite side. So this is the plans that were granted permission. This is number 12, number 13 is here, and a new property was granted permission in that position. That's the design of it, and as you can see, it's very similar to the proposed.
Thank you. Parking. Mr. Loveday, could you pick up the issue of parking? Comment has been made by the petitioner that this will exacerbate parking challenges in the area.
Mr. Chairman, I do appreciate that the surrounding roads do suffer from current parking stress. This is a result of car ownership in an area which has got a very low P-tail value, and obviously the applicant has provided a parking arrangement for both the existing property and the proposed, and that meets current council policies relating to car parking provision. So obviously we appreciate that the car parking stress under current arrangements for existing users is relatively high, especially in the evenings, but obviously the applicant has provided a sufficient on-site parking provision.
Thank you. And can you comment on whether or not this development would in any way lead to a road safety issue in Harefield Road?
Certainly, Chairman. A three-bedroom property would probably be expected to generate something in the region, I would have thought, between 5 and 6 vehicle trips during a 24-hour period. Might add one trip to during the peak hour. So, given that the amount of traffic on Harefield Road, I don't really think that the increases could be in any way viewed as significant.
Thank you. And would the development in any way impact on sight lines at the junction, which is almost a crossroads of minor side roads off of Harefield Road?
No, it wouldn't, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Last issue is potentially the trickier one. The encroachment on Harefield Road, the hedge, who owns the land? Are we satisfied that the build is wholly within privately owned land and doesn't encroach on public land?
The red line site plan that's been provided indicates the boundaries of the site. The applicant has signed the relevant certificates to say he owns all the land within the red line. You can see that Harefield Road, the footpath is the dotted line, and then the grass verge and hedge are beyond that. This development is a minimum of, as stated in paragraph 7.07 or section 7.07, 4.5 metres from the boundary of the site, or from the Harefield Road, or boundary with Harefield Road, and a maximum of 5.8 metres given the curve in the site. So it is set a sufficient distance from the boundary not to interfere with the hedge. As you can see, if I can just go to the photograph showing the inside of the site, there is a retaining wall there, and then the hedge is beyond that at the top here. So if I can go back to the proposed plan, the retaining wall is shown as being here, and then the hedge is beyond that in that position. So any development here is unlikely to impact on the hedge.
Thank you very much for that clarification. And can I just ask our head of planning whether the condition around landscaping gives you sufficient security that the hedge will in no way be damaged or infringed upon?
If that was an intention members wish covered by condition 5, I think I would wish to strengthen the current wording of that planning condition.
Okay, let's see how the discussion goes. It may or may not be appropriate. Colleagues, I open this now to discussion and questions, comments. Anybody? Councillor Stead.
Thank you, Chairman. You actually took one of my questions away when you mentioned about the ownership of the hedge and what do we do about it. Is that a genuine planning consideration about the ownership of that hedge?
Nicole.
Thank you. That was one of my comments at the beginning. Chairman helpfully pointed out what material planning considerations are, and private land use is not one of those. As you've heard from the officer, you've heard that these certificates have been assessed and have been put into place, and that tells you who owns what, essentially. And the red line is before the hedge. So I do feel that this is a non-issue, and it's not a matter that members should be considering.
Thank you for that helpful clarification. Any other Councillor Yarrow?
Yes, I'm just a little bit puzzled by what the petitioner said regarding the land at the side of 2F, that it was they tried to get planning permission and it was rejected by the council, I don't know when, maybe many moons ago, on the basis that it was overfill, infill, and would spoil the good look of the area. How can we, if that is the case, how can we now approve something which is doing just that? I know times change, but do we know when this planning application went through, if indeed it ever did?
I just look towards our legal advisor, the extent to which a potential failed planning application can be considered here.
What members must do is ensure that they look at the merits of this particular case that's before them. You have the plans, you have the details, and you've got officer's opinion on that. If there was an appeal decision that was made on another site, it's relevant, but the weighting of that would be relatively low. What you need to do is just to focus on what you have before you to ensure that you make the decision based on the merits of this particular case, and don't place reliance on a previous appeal decision which may have been some time ago, and there may have been major policy changes since then.
Thank you, Nicole. Mr. Rogers, James come in.
The most recent bit of planning history is the dwelling adjacent to number 12. So officers think that's the one you've got to put the most weighting on in terms of your decision making, and also because that's the most recent, it's the most up to date in terms of how it's been dealt with regard to planning policies in place. So the danger is when one goes back further in time that there may have been different planning policies in place, that such an application may have been assessed against at that point in time. But the most recent decision is the 2013 one regarding the dwelling next to number 12.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? Looking now for somebody to help take this matter forward then, please. Somebody needs to be brave enough to put forward a proposal on the table one way or the other. Councillor Ahmed Walana, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to forward with officer recommendations to approve this application. If I don't see any need of further debate on this, it's just we heard enough to cover this.
Thank you. Do you agree, though, are you suggesting that we should be beefing up Condition 5 landscaping to ensure that the hedge is protected?
I'm happy for that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kashid?
Yeah, second that, Chair. We'll move with the officer's recommendation. Had a concern about the hedges because Councillor Cooper have said that the hedge is maintained by the council. I'm at a loss that if it does not belong to the council, why council is maintaining it. But I've got no hesitation, other than that, I've got no hesitation to go along with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. So it's been proposed and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please, on this one? Okay, that's 6 and 6 abstentions. 1 and against? No. Right, 2 abstentions. Mrs. Beale, it won't be good news to you, but planning permission has been granted. And the reasons for that is that it is compliant with our policies, okay? And in many, many regards, that ties hands. That we are plan-led, we are policy-led, and we have to obey what we have said we would do. The issue of the hedge has been resolved and will be protected by strengthening of the condition to ensure that that remains a feature of Harefield Road. Okay?
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Colleagues, we now turn to agenda item 7, please. 16 Moray Avenue. Sorry, before we do that, Madam Sir, which application are you here for? Because we... Fine, and that's very timely. I was going to adjust the order to take you next, so thank you very much. Number 7, 16 Moray Avenue.
Thank you, Chairman. Very short, hopefully, presentation. If I can turn members' attention to page 40, they'll note that 2 enforcement notices were served relating to 2 outbuildings on this site, requiring both of them to be demolished. Outbuilding A, which is, I can go to the plans, is this one here, has been demolished, and the proposal is to reduce the size of this building and to retain it by removing fixtures and fittings and internal partitions to just provide a storeroom, gym and a shower area. The building would be reduced from just under 50 square metres, or sorry, just over 40 square metres, nearly 42 square metres, to just under 30 square metres, which is sufficient reduction for us to say that it is now acceptable in visual terms. If I can just go to the building. This is the current building. It is to be reduced in depth, and these are internal photos. And as you can see, the outbuilding A that was in position has been demolished. So we're recommending approval, obviously, with the condition which restricts the use of the outbuilding. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Councillor Chamdale.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the report is pretty comprehensive, and the officers think I think we should move forward with the officers' recommendations with the conditions attached.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Kashid. All in favour, please indicate. That is unanimous. Okay. Planning permission is granted. There is an important condition on it, though. You're not to be using that outbuilding for residential purposes, and this council does take strong enforcement action should that happen. Okay. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. We now turn to agenda item 8. 3 flagpoles.
Thank you, Chairman. This is before you as the site is located in the green belt. If I can just go, the poles have already been installed. If I can, there they are. If I can just go to the photographs, they're in that position. No impact on the green belt. So we're recommending approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Yarrow.
Move the officers recommend.
Thank you, Councillor Wallana. Thank you. Got my teeth tied up there. All in favour, please. Please show. That's everybody. Thank you. And we go now to number 9, 308 Kings Hill Avenue.
Sorry, I wasn't using the microphone. The loss of this unit is considered acceptable. There are other late evening uses, so we are, in terms of impact on adjoining occupiers, we're satisfied that the hours of use that are recommended would cover that issue, and so we're recommending approval. The second application is for the signage to go above. This is the existing elevation. It was part of the cost cutter unit when I get to the photographs. It is now vacant, so it was part of the adjacent unit and formed 3 units in one. It's now vacant. Obviously the cost cutter has reduced in size, and we're recommending that it is. There are other, as I say, late evening uses in the parade, and there is a range of other retail uses that are available as well. So we're recommending approval on both applications. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I need to take each application separately, please, when it comes to that. Any issues, comments, colleagues? Okay. Councillor Yarrow.
Agenda item 9, move the officers recommendation.
Thank you very much. Seconded, Councillor Morse.
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very, very much. Show of hands, please, on that one. That's unanimous. Thank you. And agenda item 10. Same again?
Same again, yeah.
Thank you. Same again, Councillor Morse.
I'll second again.
Thank you very much. Most helpful. Show of hands, please. That's everybody. Thank you. Agenda item 11. Before we get into this one, there are inaccuracies on the plan, such that I have asked that this matter be deferred to go back to the applicant to correct the plans. Okay?
Photos, there's a second matter that maybe we officers should be looking at on this. So there's some surfacing being put down on the site, and I'm a bit concerned that it may not be permeable. And that's over 5 square metres, so there may be there might be small points, but they're important points.
Okay, there's an opportunity here for the applicant to correct the plans, to give them the best opportunity of it being successful, and there's also a matter of us to have a discussion with them about the permeable front. So that item is to be deferred, if that's agreed. Agreed. Thank you. Item 12, 210 Central Avenue. Mr. Ronnie.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for a part 2-storey, part single-storey side and rear extension and the conversion of the dwelling to 2 flats. The application, in terms of the size of the flats and so on, is acceptable. The proposal in terms of the design and appearance and siting of the extension is the issue. The site is located in a prominent position on a corner junction, so the extension would be visible from all angles, and it is in an area of special local character, so there is additional protection. These properties there's sort of 4 terraces of 4. They're designed, the 2 end ones are sort of bookends, and are sort of individually designed on that basis with large front gables, and the extension that's being proposed does not reflect the character of the property and infills the space to the side. So, as I say, what you would do is you'd see that extension from that position quite clearly, and it doesn't relate at all well to the existing property. So it's the size and scale of the extension and its design that is the main issue here. There is a second reason for refusal relating to the kitchen on the ground floor having no windows and no natural light or outlook, which is also unacceptable. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Rani. Colleagues? Discussions? Challenges? Questions? Mr. Councillor Kashid?
I move with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. Councillor Yarrow? Thank you. Show of hands, please, on this one. That's unanimous again. Thank you. Agenda item 13, 84 Herseys Road.
Easier if I go directly to the photographs and the plans. There was, as members can see, previously an outbuilding in position here, and what has occurred is that that's been demolished and a new outbuilding has been put in position, wider but not as deep, and that was granted permission previously. What has occurred since is that this overhang has been added as part of the building process, and this application is in essence to retain the whole building, but what you're basically considering is whether the overhang is unacceptable or not. That's what you can see from the road. That's the building in question. There is. So that's it, and that's building. So the overhang that's been built, and what you can see from the adjoining property is that. So we consider the distance between the nearest point on the adjoining property and this outbuilding is over 7 metres, between 7 and 8 metres. So we feel there's sufficient distance not to have any impact on the adjacent property.
Can you just clarify, that photograph, is that taken from the actual neighbour's garden, or is that from the drive, the shared access?
That is from the adjoining property. So
okay, thank you.
There isn't a shared drive, so this is the drive, the adjoining property, and then there's a footpath in the middle, so this was taken from the footpath.
That's taken from the footpath, not the property?
No.
Okay, that's what I meant, the footpath.
Sorry.
Okay, so that's an important, so further removed.
So it's further away from where the photograph was taken, so if I can go back to that, you can see the footpath, intervening footpath here.
My question would be about the size of the previous, in terms of depth, length of that one, the previous one that has gone. Is this new proposed building with the overhang longer or shorter?
In terms of the depth, the overall roof depth is obviously longer because they've added this element to the front. The walls, or the actual size of the building and the floor space is the same.
Yeah, but with regards to the existing garage, the one this is replacing.
So that's the existing building that was there.
In terms of the depth, is that deeper?
No. It's still not as deep as the previous building.
Okay. It's just
but
a matter of scale on that.
Higher and
it made it look
wider.
deeper.
No.
So here we have a clearly wider, higher, deeper building. Thank you. Councillor Yarrow.
Am I right in that this is a retrospective application?
Yeah.
And that he was given approval to build it without the overhang, and he decided just to go ahead and do it?
Yeah. We had a complaint, so it was investigated, and this is an application for the retention of what's been built.
It is easy to be drawn in those circumstances to say, well, if you're built by plan, there wouldn't be an issue. However, what we've got to identify is whether, as it is presently before us, is there planning harm. So you need to be clear on whether or not, as built, is there planning harm. If so, let's clarify what that may be. Anybody?
Unfortunately, I don't think there's anything that one can relate to planning that causes the harm. The harm is obviously the people at 83 that look out of their master bedroom and see that monstrosity, but that's not a planning consideration. So I can't find anything wrong with it from a planning point of view, other than it was retrospective.
Okay. Other views?
Actually, when I looked at this application, I thought we got something here. What about the shadow to the next door and so on. But Councillor Yarrow said quite rightly, we can't find anything other than it was built before it started to put the application in.
It is unfortunate that some people do not follow what we might consider to be the most appropriate route. However, they are entitled to follow alternative routes, and we just have to manage the fallout from that. Okay, with those comments, can I have somebody to help take this forward, please? Councillor Stead, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. If we all agree that it's within our planning rules and regulations and everything else, then I don't see any reason why we can't support this application and go with the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. Is this being seconded? Councillor Chapman? Seconded. Thank you very much. Show of hands, please, then. That's everybody unanimous. Thank you very much. Agenda item 14, 6 and 6A, the High Street, Uxbridge.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for the raising of the roof level to provide an additional floor above this building in the High Street in Uxbridge. The site is, if I can go back, is in the conservation area and it's surrounded by listed buildings. As you can see, all the brown buildings are listed. The proposal is considered acceptable in design terms. The conservation officers have looked at the plans. Revisions have been made, which the conservation officer now finds acceptable. The size of the units that are being proposed comply with the national standards, and we are therefore recommending approval subject to the 106 restricting parking permits to the occupants of the building. And therefore it has no impact to the surrounding buildings are beyond, if I can go back to the plans, the surrounding buildings go beyond what's being proposed as an extension. The extension is above this element here, so that's the existing situation at the front, and then go to the proposed, so it's this element here. It's surrounded by higher buildings. If I can just go to the photographs, it's probably more evident there. So it's in between these buildings but set back some distance from that parapet, and so it has no impact on the adjoining occupiers. As you can see, the buildings that are surrounding it go well beyond where the extension is proposed above here, and therefore we feel that the application is now acceptable. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I just make an observation. If you go back to the photographs of the High Street, and in fact if you look at Google Earth, a prominent feature in that block is everything above the third level. The second story flats are arched windows, and we are suggesting square windows, and my view is that I think the street scene is improved if we make that more uniform and have arched windows at the higher level as well. Could I ask a comment on that?
Yeah, I think if members felt that they specifically required that change in design terms, a condition could be incorporated which sort of states that that details need to be submitted for approval, and it obviously wouldn't change the size of the units or anything of that nature, so it's a fairly simple condition that can be incorporated.
Thank you. It's my view that this is a conservation area and we should be doing our utmost to protect it in whatever way we can, and a small change for me would be worthwhile. Councillor Stead?
Thank you, Chairman. Are we interested in the ground floor area of this application? If we're talking about the shop fronts and everything else, if I recall a year or so ago, some of those front shops had frontage there that they were told they had to remove it and replace it. Is this likely to comply with that?
Mr. Irani?
This isn't one of those. We had Red Iron Burger and so on that have complied with their enforcement notices. This isn't one of the units that that an enforcement notice has been served on, and the application is for the upper floors. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Yarrow.
Well, the officers recommend it.
Thank you very much. Subject to the change, yeah, so a condition with the windows. Councillor Alchemy-Wallana, thank you very much. Show of hands, please, on that. It's everybody, thank you. Okay, if we can break the link, we're then going to go into part 2. We just checked that there's no members of the public hanging around outside. Have we got the doors wide open?